The 1960s were a turbulent time in American history. Attaining their civil rights was at the forefront of Black American thought, and all across America, black people took to the streets marching and protesting. The most prominent and influential face of civil rights in America, at that time, was a man by the name of Dr. Martin Luther King. Dr. King's ultimate dream was racial equality for black people. Dr. King wanted black people to be judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. A young man that Dr. King took under his wing on his civil rights crusade was Jesse Jackson. As an understudy to Dr. King, Jackson embraced the same energy and passion that Dr. King had for people's civil rights. Dr. King and the young Jesse Jackson would go on to form an impressible, father-son relationship. On April 4, 1968, in Memphis, Tennessee, on the balcony of the Lorraine Motel, Dr. King was assassinated. Jesse Jackson was present when the sniper fired the very shots that assassinated Dr. King. After Dr. King's assassination, Jackson continued to dedicate his life to Dr. King's dream. Like his mentor, Jackson becomes an ordained minister. Jackson is now the prominent face of civil rights in America, and builds a powerful platform. In 1984, Jackson ran for president, and while on a campaign stop in New York City, he may have imploded his campaign when he referred to the Jewish community as Hymies, and New York City, where many Jews live, as Hymietown. Jackson eventually apologized, but as the Jews always vow, never forget. Jackson's presidential run in 1984 failed to garner enough votes to win, so he tried again in 1988, but to no avail. Jackson still continued to arduously work towards advancing the civil rights of black Americans. In 2004, America discovered a fresh new face in a young man named Barack Hussein Obama. A state senator, Obama was charming, charismatic, with a wide, contagious, infectious smile any politician would die for. Obama gives the keynote address at the Democratic National Convention, and wows the entire country. And overnight, that made him a rising star in the Democratic Party and started all of the hype around a future presidential run. Obama also wrote a book entitled, Dreams from My Father, that became a bestseller. The country was in awe of Barack Obama, but especially black people, who were full of hope, and were already touting Barack Hussein Obama as their first black president. Black Americans barely knew Barack Obama, or his politics, but still embraced him as one of their own. Jackson was skeptical of Obama's civil rights intentions since he knew that Obama was not cut from that same, grassroots, old guard cloth, that he and black people had grown familiar with. In 2008, Obama goes on to become President of the United States, the first black man ever to become President of the United States of America. Jesse Jackson was in awe of Obama's accomplishment, and it showed at President Obama's inauguration, as Reverend Jackson could be seen weeping profusely, like a proud father. However, since the presidential inauguration of 2008, people cannot recall ever seeing Jesse Jackson at the White House. And no one can recall ever seeing President Barack Obama and Reverend Jesse Jackson together anywhere during the entire 8 years that Obama was in office. President Obama and Reverend Jackson, two civil rights leaders supported by the black community, and they don't come together and organize to advance the black community's civil rights. Who would divide these two black leaders? According to Frederick C. Harris, author of the book, The Price of the Ticket, an ultimatum was given as a condition for Obama's presidency. An Obama presidency meant no access to the White House from Jesse Jackson. Period. For 8 years, Jesse Jackson, a civil rights giant, was denied access to the White House. Obama organizers decided that it was time for the Jesse Jackson civil rights era to be ushered out. Obama organizers also decided that the new face of civil rights was Barack Obama, and not Jesse Jackson. Obama's election to the presidency replaced Jesse Jackson's voice as the new voice for Black America. And the new black voice now had a new agenda. The black community's long, sought-after civil rights agenda was replaced with the LGBTQ community's agenda. Many people in the black community now felt that the Black American civil rights agenda was hijacked by the LGBTQ community. Black Americans felt they were tricked into thinking that by electing Obama to the presidency that he would put more emphasis on advancing their civil rights. Instead, President Obama said, "A rising tide lifts all boats," which many black people took as abandoning him, in that they thought that President Obama relied so much on their vote to win the presidency. President Obama goes down in history as the first black, and one of the greatest presidents to have ever lived, while Jesse Jackson is practically annihilated from the annals of history, even though he is one of the greatest civil rights leaders to have ever walked the face of the earth. Like his mentor Dr. King, Jesse Jackson risked his life fighting for people's civil rights. In the 1960s, when Barack Obama was living comfortably in a racist-free Hawaii with his white grandparents, Jesse Jackson was in the streets of America working for Black Americans' civil rights. Unfortunately, and sadly, Black Americans suffered a major setback during those 8 years that Obama presided over the country because he essentially ignored most civil rights issues that related to black people. Black Americans progressed very little, if any, during Obama's tenure, still suffering from unemployment, underemployment, drugs in the community, educational disparities, and, as we know, the police killings are still happening. Black Americans were hoodwinked into messing up a sure thing in Jesse Jackson, for a maybe in Barack Obama. Being cancelled from the biggest platform in politics, the White House, Jesse Jackson's voice was, in effect, silenced, and the black civil rights agenda, silenced with it. The price that black Americans had to pay, to say that a black man had ascended to the highest office in the land, was replacing Jesse Jackson, their dedicated leader, who gave his life for their causes, for Barack Obama, who, in 8 years, dedicated very little of his political muscle to advancing black civil rights in America.
Talking down to black people on those faith-based. One good